The Milky Way. Millions of stars, planets, and asteroids, nebulas, black holes, and discoveries yet to be made. Who hasn't looked up into the night sky and wondered what all is really out there? NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, turns ordinary humans into the astronauts, engineers, and creative thinkers who have been exploring the mysteries of the universe for nearly 60 years. Back here on Earth, Space Center Houston is the official visitor center for the Johnson Space Center. Hi, I'm KHU 11's Deborah Duncan. Inside this building is one of the few places in the entire world where the history of human space exploration comes to life. Check this out. With more than 400 space artifacts, exhibits, attractions, and theaters, there's no limit to how far you can stretch your imagination as you trace the history of humanity's adventure into space.
There's so much to see and do for all ages. We have the trip over to NASA, which you can take the tram tour to go see the buildings over there where the work's going on. We have movies here, we have hands-on activities.
Nearly 1 million people from all over the world visit Space Center Houston every year, making it Houston's #1 international destination.
People come here from all over the world, of all ages and all backgrounds, and they walk away definitely more inspired.
Browse the Starship Gallery, explore the Apollo 17 command module, and the Skylab trainer. Touch another world.
Hey guys, I'm meteorologist Brooks Garner. I'm here with Paul Spanup. He's the exhibits manager here at Space Center Houston, and he's been giving me a tour of the facility and also telling me about the evolution of the technology from vintage space helmets from the 80s to spacesuits. Paul, you're holding what looks to be a space glove, and you tell me this thing is real? It was actually used?
This is a shuttle era glove. It was used for EVAs, which is a fancy way of saying spacewalkings.
But a lot of material, right?
There's a lot of material. There's up to 14 layers that make up the spacesuit and gloves. And it also helps protect them from micrometeorites.
Wait, so you're saying that a meteor could hit this glove and you'd be okay? That's awesome. So this is kind of like a national treasure, right?
It is. These are real artifacts that are part of the collection here at Space Center Houston.
As well as this is a helmet from, I understand, the mid-'80s. It's a little hard to hear. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. That looks pretty cool.
Now, Paul, I've always loved robotics. Tell me about this one. This looks like a real throwback from maybe, what, the 80s or 90s?
This robot is from the early 90s.
Was this actually in space?
This one was never designed to go to space. DART stands for Dexterous Anthropomorphic Robotic Test Bed.
Fast forward, right? This looks a little more contemporary.
Robonaut 2 is one of those members that's up on the space station right now. Robonaut 2 is a lot smarter. It has 14 degrees of movement in its arms and wrists. Robonaut doesn't need a pressurized suit to operate in. It's a lot smarter for the robot to go outside. It's less dangerous. And then the astronaut can be on the inside operating it.
This is awesome. Listen, I think this is like a 12-year-old boy's dream. I'm living it finally in my mid-30s.
Space Center Houston's education-focused exhibits explore problem-solving concepts, career paths in space, science, technology, engineering, and math.
We've got some amazing programs for students that include Space University, camp-ins, Space After Dark.
We have the Diva Design, where we have girls come in and use the astronaut food for recipes, or do robotics, or maybe some fashion design with their robots.
You'll also find examples of innovation from NASA's space shuttle era.
The whole idea of having a shuttle was conceived right here in Houston at Johnson Space Center.
8, 7, 6.
The space shuttle program helped humanity take giant leaps forward into space.
So you go from 0 miles per hour to this final speed of 17,500 miles per hour. 0 Mach up to Mach 25, which is 25 times the speed of sound. The vehicle is upside down until about Mach 13, and then at Mach 13 is when it rolls heads up.
Flying a total of 135 missions, the space shuttle carried hundreds of astronauts into orbit, allowed us to launch large pieces of equipment, and docked with the International Space Station.
Being in space is an amazing experience. The opportunity to go back out of the planet and then look back on Earth and see the blues and the whites and where we as a human race live is a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
When the shuttles were finally retired in July of 2011, it marked the end of an era. The shuttles themselves were granted to museums around the country.
Once we got the word that we were not getting a shuttle that actually flew, we were very disappointed. But it opened a bunch of doors for us and opportunities. We went to Kennedy Space Center and asked if they would give us a replica of the shuttle, which they did.
Right now, Space Center Houston is converting Independence into an incredible experience for visitors. This January, Space Center Houston will be the only place in the world where you can set foot inside of a space shuttle mounted on top of a shuttle carrier aircraft. The NASA 905 SCA, a massive, specially modified Boeing 747 that carried the space shuttle for 35 years. An incredible feat of engineering born from the imagination of a very creative thinker.
One of the first problems that they came to when they developed the shuttle was it was a great space vehicle, but it couldn't fly here on Earth. There was an engineer at Johnson Space Center by the name of John Kiker. He thought this was a very interesting problem. What if you placed the shuttle on top of an airplane?
Unbelievable. We made something that was absolutely crazy and out of this world look routine, which is what NASA does.
These are two sites that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And coming up, we'll give you a sneak peek inside. But first, how did something as big as a space shuttle and 747 get here? Turns out it took hard work, creativity, and of course, imagination. NASA's space shuttle is 122 feet long and 63 feet high to the top of the tail, with a wingspan of almost 80 feet. The NASA 905 is a bit larger, about 232 feet long, 64 feet high, and a 195-foot wingspan.
They made significant modifications to this plane.
There are 3 struts, for example, that the shuttle's mounted to on top of the 747. There were tail sections added to control the aerodynamics of the 747 as it flew in this very unique configuration.
This carrier flew 70 of the 87 ferry missions during the shuttle program.
And as I'm coming in to land, at the whole base, which is like 3 square miles on each side, is ringed with cars, with kids on top of their cars looking at us. And that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, is seeing how America responded to this wonderful thing that we've come up with.
NASA 905 also flew the retired shuttles Discovery, Enterprise, and Endeavour to the museums where they are currently on display. When the carrier retired, it had flown 11,017 hours over 42 years. That's a lot of time in the air. So you might be asking yourself, how in the world did these 2 giant aircraft end up here in the parking lot at Space Center Houston?
That's a project that takes a lot of people working together as a team.
You want to be a part of history. You want to be part of telling the story for the future.
I had a neighbor of mine who was president of Kirby Marine, and I called him up. I said, I need for you to barge this shuttle from Cape Kennedy to Houston. Then he called me back 3 days later. He said, do you know how much that's going to cost me? I said, yes, I do. You're still going to do it? Yes, sir, I'll do it.
And so we barged it through the Gulf of Mexico, up through Clear Lake and up through Galveston Bay.
I also got goosebumps when the shuttle was taken off the barge and then traveled down NASA Parkway. And everybody was just walking with it and really seeing it as it approached Space Center Houston.
Everyone was so excited. We had a celebration and all of Houston came out to celebrate.
Okay, so it took a lot of creative minds, a lot of thinking out of the box to get this shuttle back to Houston. But what about this giant 747?
We went to NASA and Dr. Ellen Ochoa. We then also talked to Boeing because they were going to have to take it apart, put it back together for us. It was actually very, very exciting. Now the hard work began.
It came to Ellington Field. That's about 7 miles away from here.
We have an organization that's called Aircraft on Ground, and they're experts at disassembling and reassembling things like the shuttle carrier aircraft. Moving a large 747 over that distance is a unique thing for that team, and so it was an exciting thing for them to do. fuselage was broken into a couple of parts, and those were all transported in a very elaborate way from Ellington Air Force Base down here to Space Center Houston.
When NASA 905 was being moved through the streets at night, it was a movie star. I mean, people were awestruck. People from everywhere came and said, this is important. We want this marvelous plane to be here. And they made things happen.
After 3 days of hard work and unbelievable accomplishments, the 747 was finally reassembled and Shuttle Independence was attached to the top. The next challenge was turning it into a museum exhibit.
It is a world-class exhibit, very unique. No one else has this type of attraction.
Folks will be able to enter both vehicles, and that's a fascinating thing to see. And it's just a really unique image of the incredible nature of the shuttle program to see those two vehicles together.
You know, the saying, everything is better and bigger in Texas. Well, let me tell you, it is.
And now, here they are, two incredible pieces of technology with two incredible stories behind them. And believe it or not, this 747 still works. Independence Plaza is truly a sight to behold. Standing next to it, you really get a sense of the scale, the innovation behind these incredible machines, and bringing them to Houston for all of us to experience. When we come back, KHOU 11 Chief Meteorologist David Paul takes us inside Independence Plaza. £900,000 of glass and metal, two incredible pieces of machinery, an experience you won't find anywhere else in the world. This is Independence Plaza. Fasten your seatbelts. We're about to open the hatch and give you the first look inside.
Wow, Paul, it's so big, and Independence Plaza is just about to open to the public.
It is.
But we get to go get a sneak peek right now.
Yeah, let's climb aboard now.
So I'm like one of the first people to actually come up here and get to explore the new Independence Plaza.
You are. We just powered it up, and you are one of the first people to see it. The first thing a visitor is going to do, we have a tower that's built on the side of both vehicles. So their experience will begin walking into the elevator. We'll take them up to the shuttle.
Wow, and here we are inside the shuttle. And what is this?
Inside the payload bay, we have a space artifact, a cradle that was flown on one of the shuttle missions. There was a satellite rescue mission. The astronauts were sent up to go save this satellite that didn't go far enough into orbit. So the shuttle flew up there and it took a backup rocket motor, a booster, and it was attached to this cradle in the back of the payload bay. They pulled the satellite in, attached the motor to it, boosted it to a higher level.
So this is where the equipment rode. What about where the people rode and lived and stayed in this thing? Can you tell me it's up here?
They would be inside here in the living and working space here, which is called the mid-deck.
It's tight in here.
It's very tight in here. So imagine 7 astronauts in this space, working, living, eating, going to the bathroom.
And it's not much bigger than a camping tent.
No, not at all. It's not much bigger than a small kitchen.
Oh, speaking of kitchens, oh look, there's a little food here. Here, are you hungry?
Creamed spinach.
Ooh. So if this is my tent and this is where I'm gonna live, how am I gonna sleep in here?
You're gonna sleep in a sleeping bag and you'll hang on the wall over there.
Well, hey, what is this?
This is the airlock.
Oh, wow. Okay, can we go up top now?
Now let's go up. You'll have to climb up this ladder.
All right, let's do it. And this is where the real fun stuff happens.
Yes, so we're climbing into the flight deck.
This is where they actually flew the shuttle.
Yes, commander and the pilot would sit up here.
And all of this done in such a small space. Well, here we are inside the 747. This is where the displays are going to be.
The exhibits inside the plane will be divided up into 7 main areas.
We were lucky enough to be hired by Space Center Houston to help them with the exhibits that are going in the SCA 905. It's a great new exhibit for them and a fascinating project for us.
So we'll tell that story about how the shuttle came about. We'll have interactives that show the stresses involved when you place a shuttle on top of a plane that was meant to carry passengers, not shuttles.
Being able to create a game that a child's going to be able to learn both a piece of history and some science is very exciting.
We talk about all the highlights of the shuttle program. We'll also pay tribute to the shuttle Columbia and Challenger. The last section that you walk through is an area where we talk about Johnson Space Center in a little bit more detail. This one interactive that we'll have will allow you to select buildings and see the science that is taking place over there and what kind of engineering and research that's going on. Another kiosk is about careers. So you'll take a little mini test and the computers ask you questions of things that, what are you interested in? So after you take the short quiz, it'll say, well, I see that you really like math. Have you ever considered being an engineer? Or it may say, I see that you have special interests in art. Did you ever consider being a graphic artist? Did you know the Johnson Space Center employs so many graphic artists?
It's amazing. Paul, thank you so much for showing us around.
Thanks for coming out to take a look. Having this shuttle carrier aircraft here is a great accomplishment for us.
Independence Plaza is really, really important to Space Center Houston. It is the biggest project that we have done since we opened our doors in 1992.
Our hope is that when you leave here, you've just got a better appreciation of the accomplishments of the shuttle program.
You've seen the crown jewel of Space Center Houston, but this definitely is not all that Space Center Houston has to offer. Coming up, how the creative minds inside this building are inspiring the next generation of space explorers. America's space program stands on the shoulders of our nation's incredible aerospace history.
100 years ago, we as the human race were jumping off of sand dunes trying to figure out how to fly, and now here we are traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. And we accomplished that in only 100 years. And that excitement, the idea that we can go from 0 miles per hour to 17,500 miles per hour orbiting the Earth, happens because we have people that get excited about STEM.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. We need a STEM-educated workforce.
STEM literacy is critical for a student's future. It sets you up to be successful in whatever field you choose.
When you bring your child in, then you know you are introducing kids to a different way of life. They may not have ever met an engineer. They may not have ever thought about the space shuttle, but to be able to come here and touch it and feel it and see it, that's life-changing. And the earlier we introduce that to children, the better.
Our adventure into space started with curiosity, and that curiosity continues to drive the innovative thinking about our future in space.
If you imagine where aviation was 100 years ago, nobody would have imagined the airline industry that exists around the world today. I think that's where space is now. We can't imagine what it will be like 100 years from now, but it'll be incredible.
And right now we have an astronaut named Scott Kelly who's performing a really cool experiment by staying up there for a year. What's cool about it is that he is a twin, and then his identical twin is remaining on Earth. So after a year period, when Scott Kelly comes back to Earth, the scientists will be able to put the two of them together and then compare and contrast these two identical twins. What we're learning from that is how people can live in space long term.
Hey there, I'm meteorologist Cheetah Johnson on the International Space Station at Space Center Houston. And now Paul Spana is going to show us how astronauts really survive and what they do on a daily basis.
Sure. Let's go over here and I'll show you. But NASA makes sure that their astronauts get their 8 hours of sleep every night. If you want, you can go ahead and try it on. There's a hole on either side for you to put your arms through.
Okay.
So let's do that. And then to keep you from floating around the space station, we're gonna secure you in there with the zipper. That way, you're gonna stay put and you're not gonna fly around and bump into anybody else.
Okay, what's the next step? What else do they do?
Well, when they wake up in the morning, the next thing that they do is they exercise.
Now this looks like it could be some work. Let's see how this works.
This is an example of what some of the exercise equipment may look like on the space station.
So let's see, they get up, they get their workout on, and then what's their next step?
Well, this is the bathroom on the, the restroom on the ISS.
The restroom, that's amazing. Look at that, that's the restroom.
The liquid waste is recycled and it's turned back into drinking water for the astronauts.
You know, I wish that I could try some of the food that astronauts really eat.
Well, I happen to know where they keep the food.
Oh!
It's right up here.
Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, wow. Pretty big, too. The strawberries are pretty good. I mean, a little dry.
They're flavorful, but they're a little dry. Well, I just happen to have some ISS water for you.
And how many times has this been recycled, Paul?
We've recycled that, or we've filtered that several times for you.
There are some amazing things going on here at Space Center Houston, and none of it happens without your help.
We are first and foremost a 501c3 education institution, and that is part of our core in who we are.
We're very fortunate to have a very strong membership base, and through their support, we're able to apply that to our education programs and continue to excite young minds.
And membership is a wonderful program at Space Center Houston. You get to come for free as often as you'd like during the year. You get free parking after your initial visit, and you get to have exclusive behind-the-scenes looks at new exhibits and at Independence Plaza as well.
You can become a member or give online at spacecenter.org. Your donations contribute directly to the future of science and manned spaceflight.
Independence Plaza is a living legacy. It's something we can all be so proud of.
The Space Shuttle program overall was a huge milestone. This is a huge part of the story of human spaceflight, and we want to be able to tell that story here at Space Center Houston.
The space program is marvelous, and it is, you look at it and you know that the young kids today are going to be the astronauts of the future. They're going to be the ones that are going to go to Mars in 20 years from now or 30 years from now. So we hope that we're planting the seed to get excited about the STEM discipline that's going to move them forward to be able to achieve anything they want to achieve.
From the very first rocket launch to the outer reaches of our solar system, NASA has propelled humanity forward through courage, innovation, and imagination. And Space Center Houston is the only place in the world where you can see that historic innovation come to life. On behalf of everyone at KHOU 11 and Space Center Houston, thanks for watching, and see you in the future.